I'm joined by a photographer who will need very little introduction to many watching today. Official White House photographer not once but twice in two very different eras. Pete Souza, thank you very much for joining us here at the Photography Show. So two spells at the White House, Ronald Reagan back in '83 and then Barack Obama a good 25 years later. Two very different eras. How did your role as official photographer change in those two very different time periods?
I know that it changed in the sense that the primary function for both presidents was to document his administration for history. So you're sort of going about it the same way. You know, the 1980s was a different era. We didn't have social media. There was really 3 television stations. There was no cable and online. And so in terms of the use of my pictures, certainly during the Obama administration, they were used more in real time than they were during the Reagan administration.
And did the demands, you know, the media changed an awful lot from the 80s through to the 2000s in terms of the demands of rolling news, and you mentioned social media as well. Did you feel a pull to produce a different type of work or more work the second time around, or were you very, very much focused, I'm documenting, that's my goal?
Yeah, no, my goal was to create the best photographic archive of a president that had ever been done with President Obama. It helped that I knew him coming in. I had known him for 4 years before he became president. He understood the value of having somebody document his administration. So for me, it was about making the pictures. That was my number one goal. How pictures were used and didn't really affect the way I went about my job.
But what did you take any lessons, because you were obviously a good 25 years younger the first time that you were there. What lessons did you take with you from your first spell with Reagan into your time with Obama?
The main lesson was that with Reagan, I didn't feel I had total access.
Right.
And so with President Obama, I was determined to have total access to everything. The most sensitive secret meetings, but also to situations outside, you know, the official part of his job. So documenting the family and just trying to show what he was like as a person as much as he was as a president.
Obama's notoriously a very, very hard-working man. As a documentarian of him and his work, does that mean that in many ways you almost have to work as hard, if not harder? Well,
there's a big difference in making decisions that affect the world than taking pictures of, you know, this person going about his business. So I can't ever correlate the difficulty of my job with the difficulty of his job. I mean, I will say that it did mean that I witnessed and observed and photographed everything that he went through. So there was a bond between us because of that. In other words, I knew when he was making a really difficult decision, or when he wasn't feeling good, or when, you know, he was stressed about something. I went through that with him.
Yep.
And unlike really nobody else that worked at the White House.
So I'm interested, your role as a documentarian, how, and I know that you work in a team, or worked in a team, how editorial is that role? How subjective, how objective is your output in that case?
When you say output?
So the images that you take when you're documenting a situation, yeah. I guess there are potentially different ways of trying to tell that story with images.
So in terms of the making of the images themselves, you know, my background is a photojournalist working for newspapers and magazines. I don't suddenly start taking pictures a different way when I go to work at the White House. I mean, I still go about the way I make a picture the same way. So that part of it doesn't change at all. Certainly in terms of the pictures that are released to the public, there's a different kind of scrutiny, and that you're not necessarily thinking about news of the day per se. You're thinking more timeless. Pictures that over time will reflect upon this is what was going on at this moment in this period of time.
I guess you're not always going to know what is going to be important at the time that you're taking those images.
And so, one of the things that I tell people is the pictures that I'm probably the proudest of are from the small moments, meaning not necessarily from big historic events or the most sensitive meeting, but just the way he may interact with somebody where it's like one of those, once in a lifetime interactions, and it may not have any consequence in terms of his presidency, but it really shows you how he is as a human being, as a person.
I understand you were once listed as one of the most powerful but least famous people. I'm curious about how you feel about the spotlight being cast on you now with your work. Obviously your role documenting another person and another body and their work. How do you feel about the attention being on you?
I sort of take it with a grain of salt. It's I'm very cognizant of the fact that the reason that people know me and my work is because of social media, and I developed a little bit of a following when I was at the White House, but even more so since I left the White House.
Just a couple of million followers on Instagram. I looked last night.
I don't take it that I don't take it that seriously. It means that people come up to me in airports and ask me to do selfies, and I find it kind of amusing, actually.
So what's next for you? Obviously you're speaking here at the Photography Show, talking about behind the curtain, behind the scenes with Barack Obama. What else is happening with your work at the moment?
I got a bunch of things going on. I've got a couple of exhibits. I have a traveling exhibit called Two Presidents with Reagan and Obama, and that just opened last month, and we'll travel around our country for the next 2 years leading up to the next election, trying to remind people that politics aside, because Reagan was a Republican and Obama was a Democrat, here are two men who respected the office of the presidency and respected other people, and I want to remind people of that, and that what we have going on in our country with the current president is not normal, and we shouldn't get numb to the fact. We want some decency in that office, and this is just a reminder through that exhibit.
Coming back to social media, obviously your Instagram account last year really went stratospheric with a lot of your commentary on the current presidency, but using contrasting images or even similar images from the previous presidency. Yet you take social media, like you say, with a kind of grain of salt. Do you get very much indecency? Do you get very much abuse on those social media platforms? And does it ever get to you, or is that all kind of part of the job that you feel as though you're now doing?
I think when I meant, I don't take Instagram with a grain of salt. I meant that I take people sort of recognizing me and having a higher profile. I take that with a grain of salt. Yeah. I take Instagram seriously. I feel that I have a unique voice on Instagram, and I don't know how I could live with myself and not speak out. I think what's happening with the current president is not normal. He's lying to us every day. He's bullying people. I think he disrespects the office, and I felt that it was my duty as a citizen, as an American citizen, to speak out. So in my own little way, I'm just trying to remind people that voting does matter.
Well, listen, Pete Souza, thank you very much for sharing your voice with us here in Birmingham at the Photography Show today, and I wish you all the very best of luck with your upcoming projects.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
Appreciate it.